Okay, I guess we can start now. First of all, thank you everyone in the room for coming to a session that doesn't have generative AI or LLMs on the title. I really do appreciate it. We will touch on Gen AI and we will touch on large language models as part of the talk, but really the focus of this talk is going to be more around navigating the regulatory frameworks that the financial services companies are dealing with. And we heard some great talks earlier. The panel discussion was excellent about highlighting the regulatory challenges that financial services companies face, as was the follow-on speaker talking about all the different factors that go into technology evaluation. So my name's Dave Castillo. I'm the firm-wide head of AI and ML technology at JPMorgan Chase. I've been with the company for 3 years, starting my 4th year, actually. I came from Capital One, where I ran the Center for Machine Learning there. I've been in financial services for 10 years. Prior to that, I was in pretty much everything, media, ad tech, you name it. I was an entrepreneur once upon a time. I've been in AI my entire career, through the peaks and valleys, ebbs and flows. This is the most exciting time of my career that I can remember, in terms of what's happening with AI and ML and, of course, Gen AI. I'm so excited about the potential, and I'm going to highlight some of that in this presentation. But there's also, with that comes, the guardrails that we have to deal with in implementing anything new, especially when you have it additive, ML and AI plus Gen AI. So financial services is no stranger to machine learning and AI. We've seen AI and ML in robotic process automation. We've seen it where it's automating these very routine tasks that we do manually. We've seen it in machine learning where we're doing credit scoring, albeit, in credit scoring, these are very explainable type models, so they tend to be more statistical. Gradient boosted machines are probably the algorithm du jour for most financial services companies, and using XGBoost because you can highlight what the contributing features are to your outcomes. If somebody asks you, hey, why is my credit limit 1,000 versus 5,000? You can explain that away. There's also risk management and other areas where machine learning has played a big part. NLP, no stranger to that. You've seen the chatbots out there, and some of them aren't very good. Some of them are better than others. Gen AI, I think, will help that immensely, but nonetheless, the NLP is out there. The transformer architectures that appeared in 2017 are certainly helping NLP in the financial services community. And then with deep learning, we've seen, with market prediction, algorithmic trading, and so on, no stranger there. So reinforcement learning for portfolio optimization. These things are happening, and they're happening virtually in almost every big financial services company around. So again, we're no strangers to the technology. But now, understand that even with that technology set, even prior to Gen AI, there's been a tremendous amount of challenges with that. And financial services companies are viewed as followers, not even fast followers. They're viewed as followers, and they're certainly not viewed as innovators. And I think you're going to see a big change in that. I'm going to walk you through some of that sort of framework today. Hopefully you'll see the connection. And then Gen AI appears, and in 9 months, we've seen, you go next door to the exhibition hall, you see all kinds of companies now that have sprung up in the last 9 months. You see companies that have rebranded themselves, or companies that have added a Gen AI component to their portfolio. This is huge and tremendous and very welcome. I'm excited about it. And when you put it together, Gen AI plus what we've already been doing with ML and machine and AI, the opportunities really become game changing. So we heard some of that earlier in the panel discussion, customer experience. There's no question that the customer experience is going to get super improved. We're going to have chatbots that are a lot smarter than they used to be. We're going to have next best actions that combine structured machine learning algorithms with unstructured data from LLMs and Gen AI. And when combined together, they're going to provide a rich experience for the customer. These are going to be highly personalized, high digital, and I think you're going to see a stickiness that we've never seen before with the customer experience. Risk management, another one. Typically, our risk management algorithms are very structured. They're algorithms that optimize against structured data. And then you augment that with what's happening in the world, what's happening in the markets, what's happening politically, what's happening, et cetera. You put those together, you're going to find that your risk management functions are actually going to be highly improved. And then auditability. In finance, especially regulated industries, you have lots of teams that have to document everything they do. It's called evidence capture. And then you have to put these documents away, and then you have to fish them out when you go through an audit, or you're going through an exam, and you have to provide evidence, and you have to show how all this evidence works, and you have to kind of string all this stuff together. Imagine now with Gen AI what you can do with that auditability factor. All kinds of automation can be wrapped around that evidence capture. I'll show you some of that in a second. Same thing with fairness and bias. Augmenting our existing capabilities is going to be outstanding. Now, one of the areas that I'm really excited about is Regtech. Historically, Regtech has been, well, let's just keep up with regulations to the best of our ability. Let's automate some of the sort of minor things that we do. But now, when you put, again, conventional or traditional AI and ML together with Gen AI, the Gen AI can keep up with all the regulatory changes, summarize those, and feed the other algorithms. I'm super excited about the process of model governance because as I'll show you, there's a big velocity impact to getting a model to market when you start to go through model governance, especially for highly regulated use cases. Imagine where you can go through a training exercise, all of your training metadata is recorded, all your experimentation data is recorded, your documents that you have to produce are automatically generated with your hypothesis, with what you believe the outcome was. You get those to the risk bodies, and they're named different names depending on who you work for. But these are risk officers or people who have a function to either validate or invalidate your hypothesis, especially on the highly regulated use cases. But now we can really extract the data from those documents, automatically generate these with just conventional AutoML, generate the validation models, and then be able to say, okay, this falls in a bucket where I don't really even need a human to sign off, or I just need the human to even look at this and just check it. So you can go literally from, I've heard, I won't say where, but I've heard that this process can take 100 days to get through this documentation. Usually the data scientist has to write this document up. They send it over. It comes back because they don't like the way it was written up. They didn't follow the template. They didn't include this or that. Now all that is off the table. That 100 days goes to less than a week, and really compressing the velocity of getting this model to market where it can actually help in decision making and give you that competitive advantage that you're looking for. So Regtech is an area you watch. This one's really going to take off, and I fundamentally do believe that financial services companies are going to pour a lot of investment in this area because whoever cracks this first is going to have an edge on the others. Fraud, kind of your traditional banking, fraud, AML, and asset protection, again, for the same reasons, being able to augment these models with unstructured data from the Gen AIs is going to provide a lift. Same thing with trading. Algorithmic trading has been, very time series based, very focused on conventional type algorithms. And now when you augment that with what's happening in the markets, the geopolitical factors, some of the stuff that we just heard about, you can actually bump those. You're going to see bumping the granularity and preciseness of those algorithms, and of course, investment chatbots that are already appearing on the scene. We've seen some of those already. They will begin to get into a larger footprint. Market prediction, we just saw a presentation on that, so I won't go much into that. We're going to see a lot more of that. And then process automation, being able to actually make that easier to do than it is today. So lots of really game-changing opportunities when you combine the two. Now, I want to just double-click on we heard there's regulatory challenges, but what does that really mean? So I'll spend just a couple minutes on this because it's important, and it's really why we are considered followers and not innovators, and why we need to become either fast followers or innovators, and we have to do that fast. So first and foremost, regulatory compliance is there for a reason. It's there to protect our consumers, and it's there to maintain the stability of the financial system. We heard about data governance earlier. Data governance is an area that is now actually not only unique to financial services, but it's actually these regulations are being applied to everyone, and rightly so. Privacy around consumer data and how we use that data, making sure that that data isn't shared, and lots of governance around privacy and security on data. Auditability, explainability, and fairness. This is where the models have to be transparent. This is why you've seen so many models that are still based on statistical algorithms, because we can actually do something with those with Shapley values, as opposed to opaque black boxes that you'll see in deep learning models. But we are making progress. We as an industry are making progress on being able to explain opaque models. So that is an area that will get better. But nonetheless, right now there's a big burden on being able to make sure your model is transparent. Your model doesn't have any proxies that infringe on protected classes, etc. Same thing with risk management. Yeah, you put a model into decisioning mode, and there are big consequences potentially for if that model doesn't do the right thing, not only to your ROI, but you could actually damage consumers. You could hurt the stability of the financial system. There's lots of things that can happen. So these models are actually placed under tremendous scrutiny before they get out, and that's why there's so many controls. And you hear about things like control procedures, control operations, stuff that you don't normally hear about when you're not in this industry. And then the banks are all littered with legacy processes, right? Being able the regulators feel comfortable with systems that they've seen that have been around for 20 plus years or 30 years, and now being able to infuse new tech into that sort of antiquated and legacy infrastructure, it's not easy, and it's not easy to introduce this kind of technology and get the regulators comfortable with it. So these are very unique and real challenges that we face, and what do we do about them? Well, just very quickly, I just want to show you the process here. This is a very general process, but even able to use data, just to use data, you have to have a data use approval. And that can take up to months to say, okay, I'm going to convince you why I want to use data. This is an area that impacts velocity. Features need to be tied back to the raw data. This is a lineage problem. Now there's technology that solves all of this, and that technology needs to be implemented and put into this process. Same thing with experimentation. I went through the description earlier, experimentation and training, and then this rigorous process, this human-intensive process that most financial services companies have today of putting together the documentation. Again, combination of AI and ML can actually do wonders here. And then you have the kind of more traditional SDLC, software development lifecycle items. So when you split this out and you look at how can you challenge and make a change in this? You need to look at it from two perspectives. One is what we call the model development lifecycle versus the software development lifecycle. And then engineer your control frameworks around the model development lifecycle. If you think about machine learning models, it doesn't matter if they're Gen AI models or they're combinations of Gen AI plus machine learning, traditional machine learning. How many iterations will a data scientist go through before they actually discover, here's the model I really think we should put in production? They're going to go through several of those, dozens of those. And you don't want to have friction with every iteration. So you want to be able to knock down those barriers and allow, we call it navigating between two gold bars. And you want to allow that data scientist the freedom to navigate between those two gold bars, because that model doesn't do you damage until it's out in the field. And so if you can navigate through those gold bars quickly, then you can use automation to help you put this into production in the field. And you can do things like operational testing when once that model has completed your 20% holdout or whatever it is that you're holding out, and you can really put it into production in a non-decisioning mode, shadow mode, if you will, where it's actually doing operationally testing and you're recording and monitoring that behavior of that model. Now you have something that really compresses the velocity of getting a model to market. Gen AI adds a whole other set of requirements on this, but the process is pretty much the same, even though you're not, when you're fine-tuning, you're not necessarily deploying a model like you would conventional machine learning. Nonetheless, you're still going through this process of where you have to provide evidence at each one of these, as you navigate each one of these phases. And that evidence capture should be automated. That evidence capture should be stored someplace where you can get to it quickly. That evidence capture should allow you to do reasoning on that evidence in case you have to go through an audit. So these toll gates can be set up for MDLC. SDLC has already nailed these. We've been doing software development lifecycle for quite some time in the financial services sector, and that's become a lot more automated. But the MDLC is new, and now the MDLC is a little exacerbated with Gen AI. But nonetheless, it's still the same thing. So as financial services companies, as I mentioned earlier, recognizing that we have this MDLC, SDLC sort of dilemma, we have to become innovators, and we have to become innovators in conquering this regulatory framework that we live within. So no more followers. We have to be innovators. At the worst case, fast followers. And we have to leverage an ecosystem that's just incredibly immense. There's lots of third-party vendors that can really help the situation, but you have to be able to deal with third-party vendors in the right way. So I'm going to just fast forward. Here's, an ecosystem looks crazy, right? Everybody's in it. Many of you are third-party vendors in the audience. I recognize you. You sit in here someplace. And, the innovation is just absolutely astonishing. So I would say you have to get away from a platform mentality into an ecosystem mentality, and you have to recognize that you need architecture first to drive the fact that you're going to integrate innovation in order to stay relevant. If you buy into a one vendor solution, that might help you for the short term tactically, but you better have a plan to not be locked into that vendor, because there's just too much innovation and not one single vendor actually does it all. Proprietary will be around your controls and your governance. And so looking at MDLC, these are the items, I won't read them all out, but looking at what's unique to the model development lifecycle, and then how that's going to feed the software development lifecycle. So I'm told I have 2 minutes left. I'm going to just kind of fast forward to this diagram, and I'll just start from the bottom. You have to have a multi-cloud strategy. If you don't, you're going to regret it. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that you can't provision from one cloud to others. Like, it's okay to provision services in Azure, services in GCP, and have your provisioning infrastructure in AWS. That's fine. But you have to be prepared to play in all of these public clouds and these public cloud providers. Your core part, this is where you do have some help, but I would strongly encourage you to look at that core part. And it's probably going to be unique to your control structure, your entitlements, your identity access management. There's just so many nuances that are unique to these financial services companies that core is a big deal. And then evidence capture, it's all commodity. The middle part, don't build it. There's lots of vendors here that will help you out. And I would say just go for those vendors that have good reputations and have open architectures that allow you to plug and play them as needed. Orchestration, we're starting to see some really cool innovation here, but the toll gate representation is something that you're going to have to think about handling that in a proprietary way. And then advertise with the innovation that's out there. Have a marketplace not only for your own innovation, but for third-party innovation as well. And let me, since I'm a few seconds over, let me just conclude with this. This is the Andreessen Horowitz LLM reference architecture. And I circled areas where you're not out of the box going to get capabilities in financial services to navigate the regulatory framework. You're going to have to do something here. And maybe in a later presentation, I can give you some examples of what can be done in these areas. But with that, I thank you. Appreciate you being here.